Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so your friends see it. Thank you.
Can you spot the difference between how Elizabeth Warren talks about Al Franken and Roy Moore? Democrats like to pretend that sexual assault accusations are not a partisan issue. But just see the difference in the way Elizabeth Warren talks about Democratic Senator Al Franken and Republican Roy Moore. Al Franken, a comedian I've long admired and a politician I've recently admired, has been caught up in two accusations, one of which he's acknowledged and apologized for. People are calling for Al Franken to step down. Do you think he should? Stephen Colbert asked Elizabeth Warren. So, look, I was just enormously disappointed about this. I knew Senator Franken long before he was Senator Franken and his wife Frannie. These allegations are serious, and women have a right to be heard and listened to on this, said Warren. But here's where I see this whole thing going right now. We're going to watch this play out with famous men. It's happened in lots of places, lots of them are talked about, and this is a moment in America, as I see it, and the question is whether this is a moment that's a big flash and then nothing really changes, nobody feels like they have to answer, or is this a moment when there's real change? Said Warren. Then she turned her attention to Moore. Quickly, it's a big question. If Roy Moore wins, should the Senate expel him? Asked Colbert. We're still pre-election. I think we have a really good candidate on the Democratic side and the people of Alabama need to get out there and I hope they support that Democratic candidate, said Warren. Maybe this is partisan for her after all. MSNBC guest accuses Trump of rising every morning to excrete the feces in insane rant. MSNBC is known for being over the top about President Trump, but even they should feel embarrassed about letting this man spout off on national television. Georgetown professor Michael Eric Dyson went on television and screamed at Trump for excreting the feces of his moral depravity. It started with a conservation on a tweet President Trump made a month ago about Ed Gillespie. Ed Gillespie will turn the really bad Virginia economy around, and fast. Strong on crime, he might even save our great statues, heritage. Tweeted President Trump. The reality is that it's a pretext and a context for bigotry here. This is a president who rises every morning to excrete the moral, to excrete the feces of his moral depravity into a nation that he's turned into his psychic commode, said Dyson on national television. Here's a guy who doesn't understand the difference between right and wrong fundamentally, and who doesn't care. So for him, race trumps everything. And in this case, sending these dog whistles out there, suggesting that the statues are part of our heritage, and it's a false argument, he said. When people say, these statues are part of our heritage. Yes, but your heritage is bigotry. The Civil War was not fought in regard to race and slavery. It was fought for states' rights. The states' right to do what? Own slaves, he said. CNN's Jim Acosta reveals which Republican he wants to be Time's Person of the Year. Time magazine made President Trump their Person of the Year in 2016, but this isn't as good as it sounds. They juxtapose the M in Time to be right over Trump's head, making it look like he has devil horns. In captions it said President of the Divided States of America. According to President Trump, the magazine contacted him, telling him he would be Person of the Year again in 2017. Time magazine called to say that I was probably going to be named Man, Person, of the Year, like last year, but I would have to agree to an interview and a major photo shoot. I said probably is no good and took a pass. Thanks anyway. Tweeted President Trump. Time magazine denied President Trump's claim. The president is incorrect about how we choose Person of the Year. Time does not comment on our choice until publication, which is December 6, they tweeted. CNN's Jim Acosta has his own ideas who should be named Person of the Year. Surprisingly, he chose a Republican. Robert Mueller. Trump was Person of the Year last year, Rebecca. So isn't once enough? You know, and also, I mean, let somebody else have a chance. Maybe it's Robert Mueller's turn, potentially, said Acosta. Maybe it will be Mueller this year. I think that would get under the president's skin, even more than not being Person of the Year himself. But you're right, he has been Person of the Year. He's been featured on Person of the Year magazine editions before. So yeah, maybe somebody else's turn, responded CNN reporter Rebecca Berg. It's a shame that all CNN cares about is getting under the president's skin. MSNBC's Joy Reid calls people who compare Al Franken to Roy Moore insane. For a long time, liberals tried to attack conservatives for being sexual predators. They attacked Fox News while ignoring their own scandals. However, they have so many sexual assault scandals that has become impossible for them. However, they have desperately clung on to that attack. The Washington Post wrote an article about why it is okay to believe Roy Moore's victims and not Bill Clinton's. They tried arguing that because Democrats are pro-women it is more forgivable when a Democrat assaults a woman. We have also seen the media try to discredit the case against Al Franken while attacking Roy Moore. Just hear what MSNBC's Joy Reid has to say. There is absolutely no symmetry between what Al Franken, but Al Franken is not being accused of being a child molester, and I think that's part of the problem. I think the conflation, the whataboutism among Republicans who try to put Roy Moore and Al Franken in the same sentence is part of the reason that the Republican Party has no credibility here, said Reid. There is literally, they don't belong in the same sentence. They don't belong in the same sentence at all. They're not the same in any character, at all, said Reid. A guest pointed out that people view them as the same. Well, then people are insane, responded Reid. By the way, Al, the idea that Al Franken should be, that there is any symmetry whatsoever, these guys are going to serve with Roy Moore if he wins and say absolutely nothing and vote with him, it is absolutely absurd, not even close to being the same, she said. You don't deserve a bullet, Uma Thurman goes Kill Bill on Harvey Weinstein. While everyone else celebrated Thanksgiving with their families, Uma Thurman, star of Quentin Tarantino's classic film Kill Bill, went on an epic rant against one of Hollywood's biggest sexual predator rapists, Harvey Weinstein. I am grateful today, to be alive, for all those I love, and for all those who have the courage to stand up for others. I said I was angry recently, and I have a few reasons, #MeToo, in case you couldn't tell by the look on my face, wrote Thurman on her Instagram. I feel it's important to take your time, be fair, be exact, so. Happy Thanksgiving everyone. Except you Harvey, and all your wicked conspirators, I'm glad it's going slowly, you don't deserve a bullet, stay tuned, writes Uma Thurman. In an interview earlier this month, Thurman revealed she had a lot to say about Weinstein, but she was waiting until she could get her emotions under control. I don't have a tidy soundbite for you, because I have learned I am not a child, and I have learned that when I've spoken in anger I usually regret the way I express myself, said Thurman. So I've been waiting to feel less angry, and when I am ready, I will say what I have to say, she said. Liberal writer explains why white people make America worse than North Korea. Kate Morgan, a liberal writer and filmmaker, has almost 50,000 followers on Twitter. Despite being white herself, Morgan shared some of the most vile angry messages about white people you've ever seen. She started off a conversation with the following tweet: I hate white people. Apparently some people insulted her appearance as a result of this tweet, So she responded with again, in typical misogynist fashion, because I critique white society, you have decided to put my attractiveness into question, when quite frankly, I only ever play it up as a secondary trait because I don't want to bone racists or lunkheads, she tweeted. I hate white people, is not a critique. It is a broad sweeping incendiary statement, essentially hate speech, and ignorant in its conclusion that white culture is uniform, responded one user. Even though she used the word white several times, she wrote this tweet. I disagree. I hate white culture, and I am not a fan of people who use the label white. It's a completely fabricated racial distinction meant for segregation and discrimination in the Americas. If you use it with pride, I'm not a fan. She tweeted back. Did you not just use the term white in your initial claim to hate white people? Look, I can do this all day. Just admit you're racist and let's go back to pretending it's not North Korea racking up the most human rights violations on this earth, responded the user. North Korea is terrible, but so is the US actually. Let's not pretend we are so much better, tweeted Morgan. Hollywood stars rally against the New York Times for being too conservative after latest article. The New York Times has come under fire from President Trump and the American people for having an extreme liberal bias. However, according to some liberals in Hollywood and the media, the New York Times is too conservative. It started with an article about millennial conservative icon Ben Shapiro called Ben Shapiro, a provocative gladiator, battles to win young conservatives. Nid writes puff piece on a former Breitbart bottom feeder. Number of critics, liberals, Dems quoted in piece, 0. This is why Trump is president. Nid's decades-long obsession with churning out right-wing puff pieces is one of the great untold stories in DC media, tweeted Eric Bullard, a former staffer at Media Matters, Salon, Rolling Stone, and Billboard. Bullard seems to believe that right-wingers having any kind of voice is what caused Trump to be president. In reality, liberals trying to censor, suppress and rid the world of conservative voices is one of the things that made Donald Trump's presidency a necessity. Hollywood superstar Deborah Messing reveals that she canceled her subscription to the New York Times for running one relatively pro-conservative article in a sea of pro-liberal articles. And why I canceled my subscription to @New York Times, tweeted Deborah Messing. Mr. Shapiro, conservative thinker, entertainer, trash talker and destroyer of weak arguments, has been called the voice of the conservative millennial movement. He represents the tastes of an emerging political class. If Rush Limbaugh is someone your dad listens to on his car radio, Mr. Shapiro, 33, a graduate of Harvard Law School, is the cool kid's philosopher, dissecting arguments with a lawyer's skill and references to Aristotle, writes the New York Times.